Hi everyone, and welcome to this video which contains a guide on how to use the shift animation tool. At first I'm going to show you a simple example on a very simple object. I'm going to show you how to apply and use this script. Then I'm going to show you how to use this tool in real animation with real characters as examples. Let's take a look at the buttons of this tool. There are actually only three available buttons. The first button is called Match. It's actually the main button for the script. It's the script itself. Second one is Euler filter with the normalization through 0. It is used for some auxiliary purposes. And there is also a viewport button. In case if something broke, something went wrong, or maybe viewport doesn't work at all, doesn't move, but buttons work, you click on this button and then the viewport is going to be active again. Traditionally, I want to talk briefly about the reason why I decided to record this tutorial, this video, because I found out that some of my students from my personal lessons, private lessons, some of the students didn't fully understand what this tool is for, and they actually neglect to use it. In order to fix the situation, in order to correct the situation, I'm recording this video. So what is this tool? Let's take a look. Let's say I have this cube animation. It's kind of bouncing or something like that. It's essentially it's not bouncing, it's taking steps maybe. There are some pauses in between each step. And let's assume I want to move this cube somewhere. Maybe make the animation wider or maybe move it in another direction. What can we do? We're going to select the cube, create an animation layer. In this animation layer, I'm going to create a key at the 0 position, at the last position as well. And then let's say I move it over here. Maybe this is the position I want my cube to be in. Now I am effectively offsetting my animation. You see the curve has been changed, and it now looks like this. As a matter of fact, after that we can maybe take this animation layer. You see it is selected. Then I'm going to apply the script. And you see my animation is recalculated, and now the curve is essentially the same as it was before. I know, with the correct bounces, with correct kind of curves. But it's a different direction, it's a different position. So trajectory remains the same, except where the cube stands on the ground. And this delta of this movement has been calculated based on this animation layer. Let's say if we turn it off, if we turn this animation off, we'll see the animation as it was previously. You see like this. So it's our original animation, so to speak. And here is the result. Of course, we can reduce the weight of this layer and control this layer accordingly if needed. But what can it be used for? That's the question. First, I'm going to show you some explicit examples with some characters, with some production animations. Right now I can see that it is, again, as most of my tools, is a non-destructive workflow, because not only I have a new animation layer with this corrected animation, with this offset animation, I also have my original layer, which has been turned off. So if you want to cancel this motion, you don't need to use Ctrl Z, because it's going to recalculate backwards, and there may be some problems if you use Ctrl Z in this case. So you can just remove the layer, activate your previous layer, your original layer, I mean your animation layer, and maybe make some changes and apply the script, apply the tool again. It's interesting that all the spacings and timings are correct, so they are the same as they were before. So it's kind of cool. And the most important fact is that nothing prevents you from making another layer, maybe making another animation, another kind of offset, put a key somewhere else. Let's say we move our cube somewhere around here, yeah, somewhere around here, and somewhere around here I'm gonna move it over there, yeah, maybe something like this. See, there is a very kind of complex curve. Then I'm gonna apply the animation, the shifting animation tool. And you see that we have this curve corrected. Of course, it's not necessary to take entire animation ranges, I mean work in full animation length or full animation range. Let's say you can create another animation layer, you can set a key somewhere in the middle of your animation, as an example, move your object somewhere around here, calculate the animation, and again, let's click match again. And you see the animation was recalculated only in the certain time range in your animation layer. I hope it's clear for now. Now, there is a question. How does it work with rotations? Let's take a look. I'm going to select the object. You see this cube actually has some small rotations. It's important that there is at least some rotations. Not just a straight line, but just a slight change in rotations. Let's take a look. Let's see. I'm going to rotate the object like this. Again, using the animation layer, it's the entire basis of my workflow. And let's say it's being rotated like this. Maybe 180 degrees. Gonna press the match button. And now you'll see how this rotation is going to be changing according to the animation. So based on this information, the animation is going to be changed. It's kind of each step, it's going to divide your animation into several steps, separate steps, and rotate the object based on these steps. Let's continue. What will happen if the object which we are shifting through the layer, what if we want to recalculate this object? Maybe if it is inside another moving object, how will the script behave? I have this example for you. I have a yellow cube which is parented to the blue cube, and at the same time blue cube is animated in its own way, and the yellow cube is also animated but in its own way. You see that those animations, those two cubes animations, are very different from each other. But you can tell that visually, and it's kind of the main point, visually it looks like as if the yellow cube is actually placed and animated in global space, in global coordinates. As if, it is kind of taking steps. It is actually a very common case when you are making moving kind of working animations. We're going to take a look at it a bit later. What's going to happen if I move the yellow cube? Let's take a look. Again, let's use a separate animation layer, move it somewhere. So I want my yellow cube to offset its motion, maybe after a certain point. I'm selecting the cube, pressing the match button. You see that it moves in exactly the same way. So the fact that the yellow cube is inside another hierarchy isn't affecting anything in our final animation for this yellow cube. The main requirement or condition for this to work, if object is moving and at certain points it's not moving, at least visually. It's a key point actually, visually it's not moving, then it's not going to move after the recalculation, because recalculation is going to take it into account. Let's try maybe taking a look at a different example. Let's say we have something different. I'm going to delete the animation layer which I had previously. I'm going to select both of these objects. Then I'm going to create a new animation layer with these two objects selected. And then I'm going to move not the yellow one, but the other one, so I mean the blue one. So essentially the parent object in this case. Yeah, maybe something like this. It's actually also a very frequent situation, which I will show you on the example with real animation, with kind of production animation. You see it's moving somewhere. Yeah, you see we have something like this. As a result, the yellow cube is also offsetted. But this yellow cube's offset was created because of the offset of the blue cube, so there is no offset kind of directly for the yellow one, and there is one for the blue one. You see, the main condition for the script to understand what objects it should recalculate is how many objects are there inside the animation layer. So it looks at the animation layer, it sees some objects and starts to recalculate, it applies the algorithm to these objects. Let's take a look. You see that animation was recalculated for both of these cubes. You can see, if we take a look at the curves, that it was applied to the blue cube, to the blue object, because it's the main one, and it also was applied to the yellow one. Next question. How will the script behave if, for example, the movements are not so directly mathematically clear? Maybe when there are some easings, some smoothing motions, classic actually classic animation tricks. Maybe with some with the tangents like this. With traditional kind of mocap animations, for example, because for the most part it has the same curves. Let's take a look. Again, I'm creating a new animation layer, I'm setting the cube's position. Also, one important part. The script actually ignores tangents on the curves, and it cares only about the objects, objects themselves, and about its timings and spacings of the keys for these objects. If we take a look at the curves after applying the animation tool, animation shifting tool, you'll see that the softening that was present previously is also present here. And this animation softening is done correctly. And now let me explain a bit about how the algorithm actually works. I believe it's needed in order to understand what's going on in general, and that it's not some kind of dark magic. After that, I can move on to some explicit examples. So how does the algorithm work? As I said earlier, what matters in all this work for the script, is how the object moves in global coordinates. If it moves with some kind of acceleration or deceleration, then these accelerations and decelerations will be calculated by the new value based on the amount of offset that we've added through the animation layer. It's very crucial to understand. So let's assume that I maybe take this animation and maybe I offset everything by a certain amount. Maybe I'm gonna move it like this over here, a bit forward. So script goes into a layer, looks at what objects are in that layer, and yeah, by the way, it can work with several objects at the same time. There is no limit to the number. It looks at what objects are there, it looks at the layer, it looks at what places and what time are the keys, So if you have several objects with keys in different places, the script will take it as one key for all objects, relatively speaking. Just keep that in mind. And if you need to move different objects differently, just use another layer and recalculate it one more time. So the script looks at what keys are present, then accordingly analyzes the movement before this layer appeared, analyzes the movement, looks like what objects have acceleration, where for example, objects slow down, where it kind of speeds up, so where it stands still, and according to this acceleration deceleration, it moves the object in the opposite direction. It kind of distributes this shift that is present in the layer to this position over here, and over here. And then it uses this delta, and with accordance to the acceleration deceleration, it builds a reverse graph for this movement. So this kind of backward graph or backward curve. It's not linear, of course. It's somehow recalculated like this, in this manner. And the script shifts or offsets the delta of this recalculation by a certain number of frames. I hope that this concept is generally understandable. And let's move on to a specific example. Before that, who is the script for anyway? This script is not intended for a general audience, so just for everyone. It will primarily be useful to those who work with mocap data, with cleaning mocap data. The script is designed to adjust the position of a character in mocap data. Basically, that's it. I'm not sure that this particular script would work so well for, let's say, traditional animation, traditional animator, just general animator, so to speak. I mean, I can hardly imagine that this range of tasks would be, kind of appropriate or suitable for the animators who create cartoon animations, because generally this script is useful for realistic animations and thus mock-up animations, mock-up data. And there are usually no problems in cartoon characters where character misses some movements or something like that. Actually, I use it in manual animation as well, but it depends. Generally, it's the most helpful, most useful for the mock-up work. I'd say that it's irreplaceable for such tasks. And one application with script is capable of, paying for itself essentially right away in just one project. And as a rule, such tasks arise from game animators who make games based on mock-up data. Let's take a look at the simplest examples and go a little further to the a bit more complex ones. So to begin with, to take a look at the simplest example, there is my animation. Character just walks, turns around, and I think it's supposed to be knocking on the door or something like that. We don't have a window here. We have some kind of cube in order to imitate the object. And let's say we need to edit this animation because maybe we need to change the height of this animation, change something because the environment changed for some reason, the layout changed. So we need to fix it. Everything we need to do is to highlight legs, pelvis. Then we're creating a layer. We're setting a key at the beginning. And at the end, I'm gonna shift it like this. Maybe he's supposed to be here. You see, he walks like this. and you see right here he starts sliding. And after that we can apply our script. Let's take a look. You can see now that the entirety of animation was recalculated, that the feet do not sleep anymore, so they move accordingly. And of course, right now, if we need to, we can for maybe average result, use some kind of average result, change the weight of the layer. That's the easiest application of this script. Naturally, if we double the weight, then accordingly the character will go even farther away. But of course, there will be actually some kind of artifacts, overextension of his legs. But of course, you can fix it through animation layer just by lowering the character just a bit. And that is the solution to this actually kind of very general problem in its purest form. And it's very easy solution, it's very fast solution. Because imagine I don't know, you would be forced to do it manually. You would spend a lot more time than just clicking one script, clicking one button. It could take like an hour, half an hour, and right now it's less than a minute. Moreover, if we don't like the movement of a leg for whatever reason, maybe I want it to be placed somewhere else. Maybe I want my leg to be somewhere around here. Maybe I like the pose more like this. Let's do it actually this way. I'm gonna put it over here, and this leg is going to be placed over here. So just a little change in position. Let's say over here I'm gonna set a key, 0 key I mean, for the animation layer. Then over here I'm gonna recalculate the position, the animation. Let's take a look. And you'll see that the feet don't sleep anymore. And it's recalculated in a proper manner, it works. I think it's bottom line, it works. Yep. Next example. Let's say we have the same animation, with the same stack of animation layers. And let's say we have some kind of an obstacle. So maybe the character is supposed to be kind of stepping over this object or walking over this object, something like this. If we really want to go around this stump or this object, doesn't matter, we could be using a different tool, but that's not the tool I want to talk about right now. But what can be done in this situation with our tool, with this shifting tool script? We can adjust the trajectory. I'm going to select the leg controls, the pelvis control. I'm going to create the animation layer. I'm going to put it over here. Over here it's going to be 0 key. And at the end it's supposed to be, again, at the 0 key, with the 0 key. And over here, we're supposed to be kind of maybe going around this object, not over but around. I'm gonna move the character slightly like this. So we have this new trajectory, a bit more curvy motion. You'll see, of course, we have some like sliding, it's perfectly normal. I'm gonna press the match button. You see it recalculates the results, and you see the character moves with a new trajectory without any sliding, and it works perfectly. Very nice. Of course, we can control the weight of the animation layer in order to control the maybe degree of this effect. Or we can actually take the pelvis control, we can maybe lower him slightly in order to avoid some overextension. Yeah, maybe like this. Yeah, that's the result. And after that, of course, we can bake all the animation layers, and voila, our animations are complete. The work is done. It's quick, easy, and convenient. And notice that due to the fact that you do this literally with one click in a matter of seconds, you can try many more options, you can try more iterations, you can play with some, interesting ideas with maybe other trajectories in this case, in this example. And of course, you will not be able to do it by hand manually, because of course you would have spent time just doing one thing, one iteration, one option, and then you consider it done because you wouldn't have wanted to spend more time on it. Let's take a look at a more complicated example. Let's say we have again the same animation, but at the end of this animation, I want to make something new with this character. I want him to get to this pose. Maybe it's like kind of game idle or game idle pose, something like that. So I want my animation to end with this pose. In order for the character to transition to maybe a different animation in game, in the cutscene, it's a kind of classic game task that actually all game animators face all the time. So what can I do? First of all, let's take a look at the pose itself. Let's take a look at what it actually looks like. I'm gonna highlight and select all the controls and click this pose. You see it goes to the center, to the origin, and looks in a wrong direction, of course. And now I need to assign this pose in such a way that, if possible, I would not be needing to adjust the hands or move anything around. So I don't want to do any manual work. It's a bit more complex task. It's actually kind of difficult to do. By the way, I was actually recently asked by one of my subscribers how to do such task. So let's do it. Maybe I'm gonna go a little beyond the usage of this instrument, or this tool. I mean, I'm gonna apply my basic rig script, my other script, which is one of the most common scripts I use. I'm just forced to show you how to do it because I think I wouldn't be able to do it without it. Let's say I have this object selected, these controls. So these objects are the objects that are supposed to be moving. Generally, it's pelvis and legs. Then select pelvis, also chest, head, legs, maybe arms as well. So I mean hands and elbows, knees, wrists as well. But the controls that you select are highly dependent on your rig, because I usually use my custom rig. But if you are using different kind of rig, maybe you're using this what is called advanced skeleton rig, I think you should select only legs and pelvis or global control for advanced skeleton rig. I believe that's enough. So let's say I've selected necessary controls. I'm applying the node. Now what I have to do, I have to put this main control over here. So I need to place it over here. I'm gonna place a locator inside. So it should be placed like this. In order for a character to be moving, to be looking in a correct direction. Because over here I'm gonna apply my pose. Yeah, maybe like this. So I set it in the proper position. Then I'm again selecting necessary controls for my rig, for my character. So it's the same controls that I've applied my node to. Then I'm baking the controls. So basic rig script, and if you are interested, you can check it out on my channel. because it kind of goes beyond the scope of this lesson. It's a very complex script that does a lot of things for animation, any kind of animation. Now all this animation, which has already been done, is recalculated relative to this position. So relative to this position, I mean. After that, I can select all controls. I'm creating a new animation layer, and on this layer, right here, I'm gonna apply the new pose. Right now, you can see it's all distorted. It looks horrible. Somewhere around here, I can set a 0 key. So effectively, I'm turning off the animation layer. So it works as in the same way as previously, and then it's supposed to be moving to this final idle pose. How to fix hands, body, and so on? It's actually your problem right now. Right here, right now, I'm not going to fix this problem because again, it goes beyond the scope of this lesson. But generally, if you want to learn to work with the mocap animations, to know the full pipeline of cleaning up mocap data and so on and so forth, I have a course for that. It's very long, a very interesting, very detailed course on how to work with basic Oric script and how to fix mocap data with it. Right now we have our feet sliding, so all we need to do is to select necessary controls. So it's pelvis, legs, to be exact. Extract selected objects. And now we have the pelvis and legs animation in a separate layer, and that's all we need. I'm gonna shift the first key of this animation for these controls. I'm gonna move it to the beginning, and thus it's gonna start recalculating earlier, and thus we're gonna avoid any sliding. Then I'm gonna press much, and that's it. And all you have to do is, all you have left is to fix your body and hands. To avoid some artifacts. Again, it's kind of easy to do, but I'm not going to tell you right here. If you want to download my course, you can buy it, learn it, watch it, and so on. The problem is solved. I think this is the most difficult task which can be solved with this shifting animation tool. I think it's the most difficult task, especially with legs. It's not simply solved, it always solved laboriously. So it takes some time, takes some effort. Alright, next question. Can we actually rotate this animation using this tool? Maybe rotate it slightly, maybe to some degree. So can we just take the same animation and maybe change the direction of this animation, so to speak? How can we do it, or can we actually do it? Yes, we can, but just a little. You can rotate the animation, but just a little. Unlike the previous example, I did the same thing with the help of basic Oric script. I've done the same thing, but I just recalculated its movement to my control object. You see, it's root motion essentially. It's just more convenient, to turn the character. So what do we do? I'm gonna select the legs, leg control, pelvis, chest, I believe. Yeah, let's select the chest. Hands, head. Again, that's because I'm using the custom rig, and you select your controls depending on your rig. I'm gonna include it, add it to the separate animation layer. And let's say somewhere from here, I want to recalculate the animation. So I want to rotate maybe the character like this. Just a little. Well, maybe it's 70 degrees, it's quite a lot, it's not a little. Of course, we have sliding. And right now, I'm not going to do anything with the legs because the script needs the legs, to understand what objects what animations to recalculate. I'm just pressing the match button, and let's see what happened. Yeah, very nice. It's a bit weird, I'd say. I mean, the motion itself is a bit weird, but as it is, because when you're rotating the animation by 70 degrees, it's a very drastic change. If we maybe take something in between, then unfortunately our feet will slide a little. Maybe you want, half of this effect. We can again take this animation layer, we can change the weight, maybe set it to half the weight, and then apply the match tool again. And you'll have, such kind of motion, this kind of motion. And in general, if you really want to recalculate the entire trajectory of the movement, to do something like this, maybe in order to bend it nicely, then you need to use a script for this task. It's a different script, and I'll make a video about it later. I have some information about this script in my channel, but let's not talk about it. Let's just move on, and let's take a look at a different example. Let's say I have an animation like this. I'm gonna turn it on. The character walking forward and stops at a certain point. Question is there any way to make it flow smoothly enough into the final pose, into this pose? So I want my character to stop moving in this pose. It's kind of the last pose for my character in this animation. Let's give it a shot. Let's try doing it. Accordingly, we know that we need to select all the necessary controls. Then somewhere around here, I'm gonna disable this pose on the separate animation layer. Then I'm gonna select pelvis and legs, extracting these controls from this animation layer. And there is a tricky part. The point is that for different legs, it's probably better to recalculate them separately. So I can just select one of the legs controls and extract it again into a separate animation layer. Then I'm going to disable it for now. Over here, I have another leg and the pelvis. Alright, so he moves like this. Yeah, maybe like this. Maybe on the leg and pelvis. We can recalculate right here. And what about this leg? I think we can recalculate it as is. Maybe I can recalculate it from... so let's start from here. Let's start kind of recalculating from here. Let's see what it gets us. So he walks, and you see the leg starts to kind of step by step, it starts to go up. Yeah, you see what we get. Of course, it's fine if maybe your character is moving upstairs, maybe something similar, but I think I can move my animation layer key in order to make the leg go up, maybe during the last step of this animation, somewhere around here. Yeah, and over here it kind of shifts to the final pose. I'm gonna match again. Let's take a look. And yeah, you see the transition is as smooth as possible. Of course, you can still work on it. There are still some things that you can tweak. Let's say, yeah, I don't like it over here. You see over here there is a very small step. I think, yeah, it looks kind of not good, so let's try fixing that. Maybe we can do something differently. Maybe over here it's supposed to be over here. It will make just a bit wider step. Maybe it will look better. Alright, alright. No, sorry, it's supposed to be other way around, I guess. Right here. And that's it. Let's match it. Step, step, and accordingly now you can recalculate the pelvis. It's actually not necessary, but you still can do it. Let's recalculate it. Yeah, looks nice. I think it's sufficient for our purposes. So in this case, we can work further with this animation. You can manually refine some things. You can refine it later if needed. All in all, it's a very powerful tool, and I haven't told you everything about it yet, but it's a very powerful tool for doing all sorts of things, like with this example. And again, primarily it's very useful for game animators, those animators who work with mocap animations, with realistic animations mostly, with cutscenes, with cinematics. So just projects that require mocap data. And those examples that we've taken a look at are one of the most kind of common examples, easy or hard tasks, doesn't matter. But with experience, if you start actually using this tool, you'll find out new ways of using this script. Maybe you will be able to use it for hands, maybe to keep some kind of steppy motion, step movement for the hands. Maybe he's climbing the wall and he's supposed to be moving his hands in a very certain manner. Maybe the character grabs something constantly. So hands supposed to be kind of retaining their positions, and you can adjust this position for these places using this script. I don't have, unfortunately, such mockup data. I would have shown you, but yeah, that's it. All further uses will come to you. You will understand those further uses with practice. You will learn, you will invent something new that's perfectly fine. The link to the script and everything I mentioned will be in the video description. Thanks a lot, and see ya.